don't think I've done a show about it, but a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump brought in a new executive order that's going to be incredibly important for conservatives and libertarians and Christians, anyone who has been on the outside of American power for the Biden administration, the Obama administration. I'm talking about an executive order called Guaranteeing Fair Banking for All Americans. In a phrase, it will end political debanking. Debanking is a made-up word for when a bank fires you as a customer, not because you've done anything wrong, like, say, money laundering or something like that, something that actually the bank would not want to have anything to do with you, but for political purposes. In fact, let me read to you from one of the very first paragraphs of this executive order. I'm just going to read a couple of lines. Financial institutions have been engaged in unacceptable practices to restrict law-abiding individuals and businesses' access to financial services on the basis of political or religious beliefs or lawful business activities. Some financial institutions participated in government-directed surveillance programs targeting persons participating in activities and causes commonly associated with conservatism. It goes on and gives a few examples, including transactions related to companies like Cabela's, that's a company that sells, fishing gear and firearms, Bass Pro Shop, or who made peer-to-peer payments that involved terms like Trump or MAGA, even though there was no specific evidence tying these individuals to criminal conduct. It's a very meaty executive order, but the crux of it is you can no longer debank someone for breaking these political rules. And not just that, different regulators are now empowered to investigate cases, including, quote, past or current, formal or informal policies or practices that require, encourage, or otherwise influence such financial institutions to engage in politicized or unlawful debanking. And by the way, it has teeth too. They can be subject to court orders, huge fines. The reason I bring this to your attention is that the United States isn't just passing executive orders for itself. Other banks do business in the United States, including Canadian banks. You might recall a couple of years ago, Rebel News tried to get a mortgage to buy an office in Calgary. And the local mortgage officers at the Royal Bank were fans of Rebel News. They said, absolutely. They gave us a green light. They even offered us a line of credit we didn't even ask for. But later, they told us it was their head office in Toronto that spiked the deal for, quote, reputational reasons. Now, there's no law against debanking in Canada. In fact, it's sort of the opposite, isn't it? You might recall that during the trucker convoy, without any legal basis, the federal government simply gave a list of names to the banks and demanded that they seize or freeze family bank accounts. If there was a husband that was in a truck and had a joint account with the wife, well, Mrs. is out shopping for groceries, suddenly none of her cards work. It was an abuse of debanking, no checks and balances whatsoever, and frankly, it was one of the main reasons why the Federal Court of Canada ruled that the Emergencies Act was illegal and unconstitutional. Debanking was what did it. Now, Canada still has debanking, as my own story proves to you, but now that the U.S. is banning it and punishing such banks, I got a question for you. Will that apply to Canadian banks that operate in the States? For example, one of the largest Canadian banks, called TD Canada Trust, has a big presence in the U.S. They just call themselves TD down there. They were engaged in massive money laundering, hundreds of millions of dollars. That's fine up here in Canada, you see. Our regulators turn a blind eye to that, but they were caught in the States, had to pay a $3 billion fine, and it resulted in the shuffle of senior management. My point is that it took American regulators to whip a Canadian bank into shape. Will that happen here? Will Canadian banks that do business in the States now have to stop their debanking if they wish to continue to operate down there? And the reason I tell you all of this is because we have just learned of a case of a Canadian Christian organization that has been debanked and was not given any explanation. Well, that explains it in itself, doesn't it? I'm talking about the Association for Reformed Political Action Canada, and their executive director, Mike Schouten, joins us now via Skype. Mike, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, good to be here, Ezra.
Now, first of all, tell our viewers a little bit about the Association for Reformed Political Action Canada. I don't think your name really gives away what you do. Are you the kind of group that I listed there that would be picked on like this? Do you have a religious or a political angle that might cause someone to try and deplatform you?
Yeah, we're a Christian political advocacy organization. So ARPA Canada, the Association for Reformed Political Action, has a mission to educate, equip, and encourage Reformed Christians and Christians at large across the country to political action. And we also take a biblical perspective directly to our civil authorities. So that's to the courts and to the legislatures across the country. We've been doing that work since 2007, and we've had a relationship with financial institutions in Canada since that time as well.
Well, I tell you right there, I've heard all I need to hear. I mean, remember, this is the Canadian government that a few years ago, if you wanted a student to sign up for the summer student program where you get a grant to hire summer students, you had to sign an attestation to agree with Justin Trudeau on matters like abortion. You literally had to swear to support Justin Trudeau's views on that issue, or you would not get any student funding. Just absolutely political bullying. So I'm not surprised that you found yourself debanked. Tell me a little bit about it. What was the bank? What did you use that bank account for? Were you doing anything unusual? Tell us about the banking you did and how it came to be that they decided to fire you and deplatform you as a customer.
Yeah, certainly. So we have a relationship with a few financial institutions here in Canada. With this particular institution, Canadian Western Bank, we've been with them since 2008. And for the most part, they are the institution whereby we had a relationship with all our monthly donors. So the stable revenue that was coming in to support our organization was coming into that financial institution every month. And we never had a problem. We had a very good, healthy relationship with that bank. And then somewhat out of the blue, on July 30th, we received a letter regarding account closure. And I initially thought this had something to do with their merger, which had been announced earlier this year with National Bank of Canada. But certainly it didn't. When I looked at the letter, it said, "We have reviewed your accounts and decided it's closing as of August 30th. Since that time, we try to reach out on numerous occasions to both our representatives at the local branch as well as to their complaints handling office, and only received one piece of communication back, and that was last week. And it simply said, we are giving you a 2-week extension to September 15th, and that's the only extension. You have to be out of our institution by that time. We're closing your entire account down. So that's the communication we received from them. Now, as I said, the National Bank of Canada has merged with Canadian Western, and again, quite surprisingly, I received a phone call from a vice president of commercial banking with the National Bank of Canada on Friday afternoon, just this past Friday afternoon, and he was apologetic, and he said, "Look, it's come to my attention that this happened. It shouldn't have happened. What can we do to make this relationship right?" Well, as your viewers can probably anticipate, when you receive a letter like that, you have to immediately scramble to find a new institution. So we are in the process of doing that, and that's going well. So I asked him for, in writing, if he could say, what he said on the phone to me, put it in writing and email it to me, and he did. And he referenced the fact that they had to take what he called this precautionary action because of something they had noticed with our account. So I've since communicated back to him and said, this is not very precautionary when you send us this type of notice, and the account closure is imminent as of a specific date, causing all this frantic activity on our side to try to find a new institution.
Yeah, Mike, that's just called lying. I mean, if there was actually something you were worried about, they would bring it to your attention. They would try and fix it. They would disclose what you had allegedly done. They would say what rule your actions had allegedly broken. I've been through this rodeo before with the Royal Bank. They are bigoted against Christians, and I don't think that that's hard to realize. I mean, I note that when Chrystia Freeland demanded that the banks freeze and seize bank accounts of hundreds of Canadians, not a single one of the banks refused. They all went along with it. They're tantamount to government instruments. They're so highly regulated. Unfortunately, the Charter of Rights does not apply to them because they're not officially government entities, so you don't have the same ability to reach for the charter. But it's funny that I think, how I started the interview by referencing Trump's executive order from just 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. What's so interesting is Canadian National Bank has branches in the States, especially in Florida. So does TD Bank, so does Royal Bank. And it wouldn't surprise me if they're going to be taking over Canadian Western Bank. So they're going to be taking over the company that discriminated against you. And by the way, I'm shocked by that because Canadian Western Bank was founded by a pro-Western, pro-freedom, pro-Christian family, the Allard family. I know them a little bit. I don't want to overstate it. But the fact that the Canadian Western Bank was the one that censored and deplatformed you is extremely gross. And I think that Mr. Allard, who founded the bank, would be turning in his grave if he knew what was being done to you by the bank he founded. It's sort of weird to me that the National Bank, which is based in Quebec, would be more tolerant, but I don't think they really are. I think they're just afraid. If you say you got this phone call from the National Bank just a week ago or so, well, Donald Trump's executive order must be ringing in their ears because they have the ability, the U.S. regulators have the ability to investigate any bank and punish them severely. And they proved it by fining TD Bank $3 billion. That's my theory, Mike. I don't think that they suddenly grew a conscience, and I don't think they suddenly started to care about Christians. I think that Donald Trump's executive order is what got them finally walking straight.
Yeah, as an advocacy organization here in Canada, we welcome the input of the international community, certainly. That is impacting our work at numerous levels. And if it does have a positive impact here in regards to our banking situation, then we welcome that. One of the other topics of interest that you and your viewers might want to be aware about is that we actually had a billboard in Hamilton taken down by the city of Hamilton. Mayor Horwath, she instructed that this billboard had to be taken down. And fortunately, in Canada, the charter does apply to governments, and it's intended to shield us from government oppression. And in this case, the mayor simply didn't like the message of that billboard, which was very straightforward, factual based, advertising a website, letkidsbe.ca, and calling for the end of medical transitioning for minors in our country. The international community has fed into this campaign in a big way because countries around the world are taking action to protect minors who experience gender dysphoria. Here in Canada, we're not up with the times yet. So if the international community can impact the policy in regards to how we deal with minors experiencing gender dysphoria, we, ARPA Canada, we welcome that. And we hope that that has a very positive impact on policy here in Canada. As you're indicating in the banking situation, it could have a positive impact on how Christians and people that the banks might not agree with ideologically are treated by them.
Yeah. I'm familiar with the billboard case, and that is a situation that the Charter of Rights likely does apply to because it's the government that's making the decision. And the charter, of course, is a shield to protect against government bigotry. Now, I think we did a story on the billboards before. Do you guys have legal assistance, either through the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms or the Democracy Fund? Do you guys have help to fight against the city? I don't think either of those charities could help you on the banking side, but against the bigoted mayor of Hamilton.
Yes, certainly. So we do have in-house legal counsel, and he is pursuing legal action against the city of Hamilton. And we've had numerous offers, including communication with some of those organizations that you mentioned, to assist either in partnering with or as interveners in this case, which we're very confident that we will win. In fact, we have won against the city of Hamilton already when it came to other advertisements in their city. So we're confident we can win. And it's simply unfortunate for the residents of Hamilton. The taxpayers of Hamilton are going to have to foot the bill plus pay costs that will be awarded to us.